Stanisław I Leszczyński was King of Poland, Grand Duke of Lithuania, Duke of Lorraine and a Count of the Holy Roman Empire. Stanisław was born into a powerful magnate family of Greater Poland, and he had the opportunity to travel to Western Europe in his youth. In 1702 King Charles XII of Sweden marched into the country as part of a continuing series of conflicts between the powers of Northern Europe. Charles forced the Polish nobility to depose Poland's king, Augustus II the Strong, and then place Stanisław on the throne. The early 18th century was a period of great problems and turmoil for Poland. In 1709 Charles was defeated by the Russians at the Battle of Poltava and withdrew to Sweden, leaving Stanisław without any real and stable support. Augustus II regained the Polish throne, and Stanisław left the country to settle in the French province of Alsace. In 1725 Stanisław's daughter Marie Leszczyńska married Louis XV of France. When Augustus died in 1733, Stanisław sought to regain the Polish throne with the help of French support for his candidacy. After traveling to Warsaw in disguise, he was elected King of Poland by an overwhelming majority of the Diet. However, before his coronation, Russia and Austria, fearing Stanisław would unite Poland in the Swedish-French alliance, invaded the country to annul his election. Stanisław was once more deposed, and under Russian pressure, a small minority in the Diet elected the Saxon elector Frederick Augustus II to the Polish throne as Augustus III. Stanisław retreated to the city of Danzig to wait for French assistance, which did not come. Fleeing before the city fell to its Russian besiegers, he then journeyed to Königsberg in Prussia, where he directed guerrilla warfare against the new king and his Russian supporters. The Peace of Vienna in 1738 recognized Augustus III as King of Poland but allowed Stanisław to keep his royal titles while granting him the provinces of Lorraine and Bar for life. In Lorraine, Stanisław proved to be a good administrator and promoted economic development. His court at Lunéville became famous as a cultural center, and he founded an academy of science at Nancy and a military college. In 1749 he published a book entitled Free Voice to Make Freedom Safe, an outline of his proposed changes in the Polish constitution. Editions of his letters to his daughter Marie, to the kings of Prussia, and to Jacques Ullin, his minister at Versailles, have been published. In Nancy, place Stanisław was named in his honor. Biography. Born in Lwow in 1677, he was the son of Rafał Leszczyński, voivode of Poznan Voivodeship, and Anna Katarzyna Jablonowska. He married Katarzyna Opolinska, by whom he had a daughter, Maria, who became Queen of France as wife of Louis XV. In 1697, as cupbearer of Poland, he signed the confirmation of the Articles of Election of August II the Strong. In 1703 he joined the Lithuanian Confederation, which the Sapiahas, with the aid of Sweden, he had formed against August king for the first time the following year. Stanisław was selected by Charles XII of Sweden after a successful Swedish invasion of Poland, to supersede Augustus II, who was hostile towards the Swedes. Leszczyński was a young man of blameless antecedents, respectable talents, and came from an ancient family, but certainly without sufficient force of character or political influence to sustain himself on so unstable a throne. Nevertheless, with the assistance of a bribing fund and an army corps, the Swedes succeeded in procuring his election by a scratch assembly of half a dozen castellans and a few score of gentlemen on the 12th of July 1704. A few months later, Stanislaw was forced by a sudden inroad of August to seek refuge in the Swedish camp, but finally on the 24th of September 1705, he was crowned king with great splendor. Charles himself supplied his nominee with a new crown and scepter in lieu of the ancient Polish regalia, which had been carried off to Saxony by August. During this time the King of Sweden sent Peter Estenberg to King Stanislaw to act as an ambassador and correspondence secretary. The Polish king's first act was to cement an alliance with Charles XII, whereby the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth engaged to assist Sweden against the Russian Tsar. Stanislaw did what he could to assist his patron. Thus, he induced Ivan Mazepa, the Cossack hetman, to desert Peter the Great at the most critical period of the Great Northern War between Russia and Sweden, and Stanislaw placed a small army corps at the disposal of the Swedes. But Stanislaw depended so entirely on the success of Charles's arms that after the Battle of Poltava Stanislaw's authority vanished as a dream at the first touch of reality. During this period Stanislaw resided in the town of Rydzyna. First, loss of the throne. The vast majority of Poles hastened to repudiate Stanislaw and make the peace with August. Henceforth a mere pensioner of Charles XII, Stanislaw accompanied Crasso's army corps in its retreat to Swedish Pomerania. On the restoration of Augustus, Stanislaw resigned the Polish crown in exchange for the little principality of Zweibrücken. In 1716, an assassination was attempted by a Saxon officer, Lacroix, but Stanislaw was saved by Stanisław Poniatowski, father of the future king. Stanisław Leszczyński then resided at Wissembourg in Alsace. In 1725, he had the satisfaction of seeing his daughter Maria become queen consort of Louis XV of France. From 1725 to 1733, Stanislaw lived at the Château de Chambord. King from the second time, Stanislaw's son-in-law Louis XV supported his claims to the Polish throne after the death of August II the Strong in 1733, which led to the War of the Polish Succession. In September 1733, Stanislaw himself arrived at Warsaw, having travelled night and day through Central Europe disguised as a coachman. On the following day, despite many protests, Stanislaw was duly elected King of Poland for the second time. However, Russia was opposed to any nominee of France and Sweden. Russia protested against his election at once, in favor of the new elector of Saxony, as being the candidate of her Austrian ally. On the 30th of June 1734, a Russian army of 20,000 under Peter Lacy, after proclaiming August III the Saxon at Warsaw, proceeded to besiege Stanislaw at Danzig, where he was entrenched with his partisans to await the relief that had been promised by France. The siege began in October 1734. On the 17th of March 1735, Marshal Munich superseded Peter Lacy, and on the 20th of May 1735 the long-expected French fleet appeared and disembarked 2,400 men on Westerplatte. A week later, this little army gallantly attempted to force the Russian entrenchments but was finally compelled to surrender. This was the first time that France and Russia had met as foes in the field. On the 30th of June 1735, Danzig capitulated unconditionally, after sustaining a siege of 135 days which cost the Russians 8,000 men. Disguised as a peasant, Stanislaw had contrived to escape 2 days before. He reappeared at Königsberg, whence he issued a manifesto to his partisans which resulted in the formation of a confederation on his behalf, and the dispatch of a Polish envoy to Paris to urge France to invade Saxony with at least 40,000 men. In Ukraine too, Count Nicholas Potocki kept on foot to support Stanislaw, a motley host of 50,000 men, which was ultimately scattered by the Russians. final loss of the throne. On 26 January 1736, Stanislaw again abdicated the throne, but received in compensation the Duchy of Lorraine and of Bar, which was to revert to France on his death. In 1738, he sold his estates of Radzina and Leszno to Count Alexander Joseph Sulkowski. He settled at Lunéville, founded there in 1750 both the Académie de Stanislas and Bibliothèque Municipale de Nancy, and devoted himself for the rest of his life to science and philanthropy, engaging most notably in controversy with Rousseau. He also published Głos Wolny Wolnoskubas Pieszczadzi, one of the most important political treatises of the Polish Enlightenment. There, Stanislaw was still living at the time of the birth of his great-great-granddaughter, Archduchess Maria Theresa of Austria, in 1762. He died in 1766, aged 88 as a result of serious burns. His silk attire caught fire from a spark while the king was snoozing near the fireplace in his palace in Lunéville. He was medically treated for several days but died of wounds on the 23rd of February. He was the longest surviving Polish king, originally buried in the Church of Notre Dame de Bonsecours, Nancy. Following the French Revolution, his remains were brought back to Poland and buried in the royal tomb of the Worel Cathedral in Kraków. Children: Anna died unmarried and childless. Maria married Louis XV of France and had issue. Ancestors. Gallery.